I've got some bad news for you.
The LCS is dead. Quite literally. I'm not sugarcoating this. I'm just being entirely honest with you. We finished the regular season with under 60,000 average viewers, the worst the LCS has ever seen in its history.
Yikes. Quick audio check, and yeah, that's pretty rough. It looks like a couple decades of bad decisions, excessive top-down control, blowing up the league, destroying everything people like, firing personalities everyone loves, barely playing any games, insisting on crapshoot best of ones, letting the LEC schedule affect LCS game schedules, not selling team skins, mocking and memeing your own region, a lack of professionalism, strangling third-party content in the crib, not bringing in any real sports or broadcasting business expertise, getting in bed with crypto. By the way, seems brilliant to go for round 2 of that with the criminal gambling world, huh? And treating your esport like a Costco rotisserie chicken, making it a cheap loss leader for your video game. Eventually came home to roost. I mean, what do we do now? What could we possibly do?
And the reality is there's nothing you can do because all eyes are going to go to Korea. Why would you watch North America as the 4th best region in the world whenever there's really nothing that can come of it when competitive excellence is the only thing that matters?
Yeah, clearly competitive excellence is all that matters. I mean, you know, nobody will watch anything unless they're the best players in the league. Well, oh, wait a second. You mean a random ass player who'd been playing League for a week threw together a tournament with a bunch of randoms and former pros and did 10 times the viewers, almost 1 million peak? Wow. Kind of looks like people want some League. Kind of seems like maybe in NA people still enjoy watching League.
That there's a ton of issues that go into this for North America specifically, including the over-importing of players.
Okay. Stop right there. Stop right there. I am sick of the import bullshit argument garbage. It's racist. It's build the wall, deport the immigrants bullshit energy. It's flawed. It's as bad as blaming immigrants for America's problems and just as incorrect. There are 50 other decisions Riot's done that have messed things up for NALCS. History disproves the import argument completely. TSM with imports was the most popular team in the world. And some of the most popular players in NA history are imports. Bjergsen, Impact, Svenskeren, Core JJ, Lustboy, Rush, Huni, Huhi, Rainover, Santorin, Sven, Jensen. Sorry, Jensen. And, I mean, what about these guys? Remember this team? LMQ, 5 Chinese players. Royal Never Give Up sister team. First year, good team. Made playoffs. Exciting. Very popular. And look at other sports. Look at the NBA. Look at the explosion of imports. And who's right now the most popular, best player in the NBA? Wemby from France. Who's the most popular, best player in the MLB? Shohei Ohtani. Can you imagine if there was an import rule in MLB? Imagine if you could only have 2 players from Latin America. Hell, most teams have more than 2 players from Dominican Republic. If you want domestic talent, you can't blame the import rule or anything like that. You got to blame Riot. No league support in high school. No league support in college. In the high school level, at one point, they turned it over to PlayVS, who just profiteered and ripped off high schools. Then they pulled away League Unlocked. They wouldn't even let the high school kids have champions and skins unlocked. So they're having to do drafts on a web page because they can't even trade champions in game because kids in high school don't have enough champions. Ridiculous. You know how Microsoft dominated the word processor space? For 20 years, they let high school and college kids steal Word and they didn't give a crap. Why the heck Riot decided they couldn't give League Unlocked anymore to high school and college kids is beyond me. But anyway, in the college system, it is a 7,000 league fiefdom of chaos. Nobody knows what league is better than which and who funnels into what and who's the national champion. It's a mess. There's no grassroots pipeline. And compare that to other leagues here. the MLB has minor leagues. The NBA has the G League. The NFL has the NCAA. The LCS has basically nothing functional below it, funneling talent up. Korea has PC Bangs, deep amateur scene, Real Challenger, Korea Development League. The orgs themselves have their own systems. Korea's dominant because of infrastructure, not protectionism.
For the LCK, sure, they are the lone surviving domestic region that is actually thriving right now.
They sure are. And let's look at the difference. Wow. No one's dying. And that's the other thing that gets thrown out there all the time. Oh, franchising. Franchise made it dull. We want teams getting demoted and kicked out. Even with franchising, half the damn teams are dead and gone. Has that helped? Has that been good? No, it's been terrible. Furthermore, you've lost TSM and CLG. You lost Echo Fox. You've lost LMQ. You've lost tons of teams that had a lot of fans that people really liked. How are you supposed to build fandom when half your freaking slots are dead in the last 6-8 years? There's part of your problem right there.
You got to go open circuit.
Oh my God, open circuit. So, I'm not saying that open circuit wouldn't maybe be fun or wouldn't, maybe be interesting, but you don't got to go open circuit. And even worse,
other esports doing so. Everybody knows it's the better.
No, everyone doesn't know it. There's open circuit in some sports, but not the majority of sports. And he goes on to talk about CSGO or Counter-Strike or whatever the hell. Yeah, they have half the revenue and a quarter of the viewers. They're not comparable. League of Legends doesn't need to abandon something that actually was working and growing for quite a long time and copy smaller, less significant esports. You don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, especially when one of your 4 leagues is absolutely thriving, and then another one is doing pretty well also.
We all agree the LCK is the best League of Legends domestic league in the world.
Yes, and why? Because they have an ecosystem, because they have a minor league type situation going on. We talked about this.
Correct. We should all agree on that foundation. They are the only region that stands a consistent chance at winning worlds right now.
Yep.
Are these international events where then North America and beyond are just going to get crushed.
Yeah, that sucks. But remember an international event that NA actually won when they had 3 imports and they actually beat Korea and China? And what do you know? It was an international event not run by Riot, because there were other people involved in the esport than just Riot. That was pretty cool. They even made a movie about it. It's on Netflix. Check it out.
Then the teams lose, they go back home, and it's the same thing over and over again. There's not the possibility for new players and new stories because this franchise system just kind of self-contains everything. There's no draft mechanic that teams can get the best player in the world all of a sudden that will help rebound their franchise. You're just permanently stuck.
So yeah, imagine if there was another way you could get good players on your team besides a draft. I wonder what that would be. Oh, I know. It's called free agency. But what happens when you only can have 2 imports on your team? Yeah, there's all these people like, oh, it would suck if if the NA teams had 3, 4 Koreans. Like, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't suck at all. And the teams and the orgs would win and thrive. And some NA players that are local would develop, especially, again, if you had an actual ecosystem. If anything, the import restriction has hurt NA, has limited the ability, because there was a time when the NA teams were wallowing in money, and they could have imported all the best players. Hell, Faker probably would have played for TSM by now. Or, who knows, maybe Carey would be a support, and Bjergsen would have 3 world titles. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. But not with the import restrictions. And while I finish the rest of this rant, you can watch one of the greatest rivalries in NA LCS highlights. The core of the problem here really is that Riot is not a sports or a broadcasting company. They're a video game company. They're a pretty good video game company. Maybe a great video game company. But they took on too much, and as soon as they saw they couldn't do it, they should have handed over the reins. They should have partnered with somebody, or they should have licensed it out to someone who knows how to run a sports league or a broadcasting sports company or something of that nature. And if they didn't do a good job, They put it up for bid and let somebody else do it. They're never to blame, and they're always making money because whoever they work with has to pay the bid. And before I get too far afield, I have to hit this because it's, in my opinion, one of the most important points. Team skins, team skins, team skins. Riot left billions of dollars on the table with this weird ass, only the world champion gets a team skin. That is beyond stupid. Can you imagine if only the Super Bowl champion had merch? If only the World Series champion had merch? The NFL makes $8 billion a year on merch. Not just from the Super Bowl champion. Hell, there's some years the Super Bowl champion is a small market team and their merch sales are garbage compared to the other teams. And let's take a peek at this, for example.
Get your thoughts on the game.
I hate this team. I was born into this, and I'm not gonna ever. I'm always a Jets fan, but like, I hate this team.
Oh, look at this poor kid. He's a Jets fan. His shitty team hasn't been to the playoffs in 16 years. They haven't won a Super Bowl since Joe Namath in Super Bowl III, if memory serves. That's 50 years. And he's got a jersey and a hoodie. His dad's got a hoodie. And he's still a Jets fan going to the freaking games. Paying hundreds of dollars. This day probably cost them $500 to go to this game. Why? Because they can buy merch of their shitty team. They make Jets make about $500 million a year in their rev share from merch. I mean, the team skins thing is beyond moronic. And speaking of merch, where the hell is the merch, Riot? Where's my esports merch? Not only has my family been League fans since beta, LCS fans since at least Season 3, our kids both played in high school and college, high school state champions, collegiate champions, and we constantly want to buy merch and it's never there. Barely any merch. Speaking of which, barely any Arcane merch. The lack of merch in general is unbelievable to me. Such a wasted opportunity. And then that leads us to the next problem, which is control. Riot is obsessed with control. They want to control every single thing about the esport. They control the patches. They control what version of the game gets played, even if it's incredibly disruptive. They control the media. They control the broadcast. They control the coverage. They control the commentary, everything. If Riot ran sports leagues, there'd be no ESPN, no Fox Sports, Barstool, no HBO Sports, no TNT inside the NBA, no Charles Barkley and Shaq, no Mel Kiper and Todd McShay draft experts, no Mina Kimes, nothing. By the way, shout out to Mina Kimes. She wrote the ESPN The Magazine article about the unkillable Demon King, introducing Faker to North America. Anyway, they want to control everything. And as a result, they strangle everything. Real third-party media has to be independent to thrive. That's what fans want. They want to hear real criticisms. They want to hear real analysis. They don't want to hear something that is stymied and approved by corporate. So instead, they strangle commentators. They didn't pay them very well, didn't give them very good contracts or job security. Go back and look at the stories from Monte Cristo about how that situation was. It's terrible. And then the people that are great, they lose them too. Dash is a national treasure, and it's an abomination that they lost him. He was a human hype volcano. When we went to World Semifinals in Atlanta, he would turn in 30 seconds a dead quiet stadium full of 60,000 people into an explosion of people excited, fired up, completely into the experience. The guy's amazing, and they lost him. So now we have a content void. For a while, all we had was Travis, but eventually he got fed up and took his ball and went home. So instead, now we have Shinnok, and thank God for him and his passion for NA LCS. But can you imagine if the number one commentator for the NFL was a guy who worked for Amazon and coached golf and made content on his own while walking to work? And so then instead, the co-streamers get scapegoated. Pedroll, I Will Dominate, Double Lift, people making content that people really love and use to engage with the esport. And instead they get blamed for harming. Somehow they're harming the esport by keeping hundreds of thousands of people watching. And don't even get me started with that debacle over in the LEC with what they did to Los Ratones. I mean, just foolishness. The number of times Riot has squandered hundreds of thousands, if not millions of fans when they've looked a gift horse in the mouth is unbelievable to me. Of course, they're squandering billions with no team skins. But, and then the next question is, why aren't the teams picking up the slack? Why aren't they making content? You know, there was an org once that made really good content. Yeah, TSM. Would have been nice if you kept them in your league, huh? Yeah, that's a shame. But yeah, so why aren't they making more content? Well, why should they? They're not getting any return. You know, there's nothing they're getting back from Riot. So why should they? Imagine if they could sell team skins. Bet you they'd make a lot more content. Instead of building infinite layers of top-down control with a global head of esports and a president of esports and a grand poobah of esports and a million other executives who sound like that punchable Starbucks CEO when they use corporate speak to gaslight us about what's going on with League. Maybe they should finally, at long last, turn it over to people who know what they're doing. People who are truly passionate about the esport first, not the game first. There are people out there who love this esport and would sweat and bleed to make it thrive. Let them do it. And lastly, for the love of God, sell team skins.